So last year, I quit my job and have been traveling full time without really having to worry about money at all. And I think the reason that I've been able to do this is because I developed healthy personal finance habits in my early 20s. If you're new to personal finance, I would highly recommend the book I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. I just personally really resonated with the way that he thinks about money, and I base a lot of my current systems on his principles, and I just found it to be super, super helpful. But I was thankfully always pretty diligent about the way that I handled my money, and I was always maxing out my retirement accounts and investing in my personal investment account and also my high yield savings account every single year ever since I started earning an income post college. And so by the time that I decided I wanted to quit my job and take a break from the corporate world for a little bit, all those habits that I started in my early 20s had been compounding and did a lot of the work for me over time. And so I was already kind of in a decent place financially. And then I think the main thing that I changed maybe about 4 to 6 months before my last day of work was that I just started to save a lot more aggressively in my high yield savings account, because that was my most liquid account and what I planned on relying on primarily for my basic living expenses in the medium term. And I've also been able to offset how much I've been dipping into my savings account by doing a few things. First, I just try to be as reasonable with my expenditures as possible. Like, I'm definitely not a budget backpacker or that kind of budget traveler by any means, but I'm also just not very frivolous with my spending generally. I also earn interest in my high yield savings account right now. It's not a lot, but it's enough to maybe cover a few weeks of groceries every single month, which is still meaningful. And I also use my travel credit card points as much as I can for big ticket purchases like flights. And then last year, about 6 months into my travels, I decided to pick up some freelance work by utilizing my connections in my old industry. And basically, I'm just doing the same job that I was in my prior role, but on a contract basis for smaller businesses that might not have the budget to hire someone full time. And so more than a year later, I feel like I'm still in a pretty comfortable position to keep traveling full time. And if you're thinking of pursuing a similar path, I don't want to dissuade you or discourage you by telling you that it was a multi-year process. I definitely think that if this is a priority for you, you can achieve your savings goals on a much shorter time horizon. You might just have to make a few more sacrifices in your day-to-day life. But honestly, regardless of your situation, whether you want to quit your job like me or you don't, I just feel like if you don't feel secure in your personal finances, I would still highly recommend that book to anyone. And I think it's really worth getting those items in check because life is just so unpredictable. And the thought of quitting my job and traveling longer term had never crossed my mind until maybe 2 years ago. But I'm so glad that I had started doing these things much, much earlier, because it allowed me to be in a place where I could prioritize myself and my needs and what I really wanted to do with my life, and allowed me to make a decision like that with confidence and security, which I definitely do not take for granted, but I also want to say that it wasn't handed to me. I probably have a lot that I left out, but I do have an older video on my TikTok that I uploaded like a long time ago when I was first starting this account, and it goes a little bit more into detail about how I specifically manage my finances in relation to quitting my job. But if you have any specific questions or want me to dive into anything in particular, just let me know in the comments, but otherwise, I hope this was helpful.